welcome to livealittlehigher.com. This week we read Parashat Lech Lecha. We walk with our patriarch Abraham Avinu, and I always take a little minute before I start the shiur, thanking Hashem for all the kindness that He has bestowed upon me and my family. In the year 2001, my husband woke up on a Wednesday morning in this Parashat Lech Lecha, and he said to me, Margie, I need to become Shomer Shabbat. I need to start keeping the Sabbath. And I was like, what? Where did this come from? And he says, I don't know what happened to me. I woke up today and I have this feeling, I have this need that I have to start keeping Shabbat. And I said to him, okay, I'm not ready for this. I don't think I can do it right now, but I'm gonna help you do it. And so we helped him. He became Shomer Shabbat on this parasha in which Hashem tells Abraham to leave everything behind, go to the place that He's gonna show him, and He's gonna make him into a great nation. And in truth, Lech Lecha means to go to yourself, to go to your inner self, to that true self that you are. And that's what he did. And with him, each one on their own, we all came also. We all came back to who we are. And so I want to thank God that He paved the way. He showed us the way through the Torah, through our patriarchs, through incredible teachers that we had, to be able to come full circle and live an authentic Jewish life. And also, Live a Little Higher is celebrating its 6th anniversary today, and I want to thank Hashem for that too. So, being that said, this week, Lech Lecha, at the end of the parasha, at the end of the Sidra, we see that Hashem commands Abraham Avinu to do circumcision, to do his Brit Milah, which is a pact that Hashem, a covenant that Hashem did with the Jewish people. And He says to him to do the Brit Milah on his son Ishmael and on all the other males in his household. God promised that if Abraham was to perform the Brit Milah, then he would achieve a great level of perfection. So we see that this is very interesting. He was 99 years old, Abraham at that time. His son Ishmael, who was the son he had with his concubine Hagar, and this is where all the Islam religion comes, the Muslim religion comes from this Ishmael. He did his Brit Milah when he was 13 years old. So Abraham was 99 and Ishmael was actually 13 years old. And then the first Brit Milah that is done on an 8-day-old baby was done to Isaac when he was born. So we see that Abraham used to keep every mitzvah under the sun. Every mitzvah that was given to us at Mount Sinai, he used to keep them before that. Not as a commandment from God, because they were not commandments. The Torah was not given to us yet, but he did them out of love for Hashem. But this commandment, specifically this commandment, Brit Milah, he didn't do it. He didn't do it on his own. He waited till Hashem asked him to do it. And some of the commentaries say that he waited because he had so much love for God. He kept everything for God because he loved God. He wanted to do something that God wanted him to do. So he waited for Hashem to ask him at 99 years old. Imagine you're 99 and they're asking you to do this, the circumcision. And he went and he did it. So the Shem Mishmuel, which is a great rabbi that gives incredible interpretations of the Torah. I had never read this before. He says that as a man of intense spiritual desires, always striving to fulfill God's wish, he would have expected Abraham to circumcise himself without further consideration. Instead, there's a very intriguing midrash which I had never read before. This midrash in Tanhuma, in Parashat Vayera. It says Abraham had three close friends. He had three close friends, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. And when God instructed him to do the Brit Milah, to perform this circumcision, he went to them to ask for advice and asked them, what do you think? What should I do? And so, very interestingly, we see that Aner asked him whether he wanted to maim himself and risk that the relatives of the kings he had slain would take advantage of him and kill him. He says, okay, you're crazy, you're going to maim yourself, you're going to be weak, and you're going to have all these relatives of these kings who are angry at you because you killed the kings, and they're going to come and they're going to take advantage and they're going to kill you. Eshcol remarked that Abraham was old and that he might die from this operation. Like, okay, hello, you're 99, you're gonna go through surgery, and who knows, maybe you get an infection, maybe you get who knows what. Why would you do this to yourself? Maybe you die. And then Mamre advised him to go and do the Brit Milah. He told him, go ahead, do what Hashem is asking you to do. Hashem has saved you many times before. He has shown that he loves you. Why would you not do this thing for him? And this is a very, very strange midrash. And this is astonishing. Why would Abraham ask his friends' opinions on this mitzvah? Like, we never hear that Abraham had friends, like, ever. This is a midrash, obviously. It's not the Chumash. And it can be questioned if it's real or not. But the question, what is interesting here is, why would he go and ask for an opinion? Why would he go and ask for counsel? And so we see another very interesting midrash, in which says in the midrash says, and Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, and this is in Bereshit, and we see that she died in Kiryat Arba. That's a beautiful city in Israel. It's right before coming to Hebron, and it says, why was this place called Kiryat Arba? And it says because there were tzaddikim that lived in this place. And who are these tzaddikim? The tzaddikim are Aner, Eshcol, Mamre, and Abraham. So these friends of Abraham were considered tzaddikim. He didn't ask just anybody. He asked people who were very holy. And we see also from the midrash that these three friends of Abraham also performed the Brit Milah. When Abraham did the Brit Milah, they also did the Brit Milah. So this was a great test for Abraham. We know that he went through 10 tests in his life. He was always tested. From here we learn that life is not a free ride, that everybody gets tested. And so we see that before answering, we need to appreciate the spiritual struggle that Abraham encountered after he was commanded to circumcise himself. So who would have thought that he had a struggle? He loved doing things for Hashem. He didn't have a struggle when Hashem asked him to go and sacrifice his beloved son Yitzhak. He had alacrity. He went early in the morning. He didn't even think about it. So why was Brit Milah such a struggle? And the Shem Mishmuel says that it's well known that Abraham was given 10 tests in which he demonstrated his spiritual greatness. Through each test, we see how he became greater and greater and greater. And it follows that the test must have increased in difficulty. Obviously, if you see when you go to school or you go to college, once you start ascending in your studies, the tests become harder. The same way in life, if for you it's easy, it's such a thing already, you're tested, you passed, for you it's not a big deal, then the next test will be a little harder. So we see there is no point in testing someone and finding that they passed the test, and then afterwards giving them an easier test. Like, you don't give up in school, you don't give easier test after you give a test, you give more difficult tests. So the mitzvah of Brit Milah must have been a very hard mitzvah for Abraham to accomplish, and it must have been harder than all his previous tests. His earlier tests, including being prepared to sacrifice his life for God when he was a little boy, he recognized that there was only one God. He smashed all the idols of his father, and the king Nimrod took him into a fiery furnace, and he was saved from that. And so, but he was willing to give his life for Hashem. And we see that in all these tests that he was tested, he was always willing to give his life for Hashem. So we have seen that God promised Abraham perfection for circumcising himself. So one would ask, okay, circumcision, is that perfection? Like baby's born perfect and you're cutting a piece of his body. Is that perfection? And so this would establish a unique link between the God and Abraham forevermore. And Jewish people have been doing this Brit Milah ceremony for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, since Abraham Avinu, and we don't even question it. You see, a baby's born in a Jewish house, and the parents might not be even any religious, they don't keep any mitzvah, and nevertheless, the baby is born, and they're not even questioning if the baby should have a Brit Milah or not have a Brit Milah. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's a supra-rational mitzvah. It is even in the 8th day, which 8 is infinity, is beyond the natural world. So we see that the Abraham would be indifferent from everybody else. So once he had the Brit Milah, physically he wouldn't be like everybody else anymore. And not just physically, but also very different spiritually. Very different. He would be taken from ordinary life and launched into a very distinct, holy, elevated life. It's more, his name was changed to Abraham, not Abram. Hay was given to him. And his whole being changed. It was so more that he could have children with Sarah after his Brit Milah. So in this lay Abraham's problem. And the Shem Mishmuel says that his father, Rabbi Abraham Bornstein, explained that Abraham's whole life was channeled towards developing not just his relationship with God, but also helping other people connect to Hashem. So his whole reason of existence, his whole raison d'etre, was to connect people to God. It's so much that after the 3rd day of his Brit Milah, he was depressed because nobody came to visit him. And Hashem had to send 3 angels to come, and so he could do Ochnasas Orehim and do all these mitzvah. But we see that he had a love for people. He was a loving person. He loved people. He was a social butterfly, and he liked to connect people to God. And he could only achieve this if he had some sort of relationship with those people whom he strove to draw near to his way of thinking. So he felt that if he was going to be so up there, so elevated, then people would not be able to connect to him. People would not be able to relate to him. People would not be able to say, okay, I want to be like Abraham. Because if I want to be like Abraham, look what I have to do with myself. So here is the test of the Brit Milah. And Abraham was concerned that if he went ahead with the operation, he would lose touch with the common man, and he would become very different. And he would be so exalted that he would have no hope of reaching out and spreading the light of God to the world, to the uninitiated. Indeed, the slight traces of the mundane that still remained within Abraham would be expunged through the Milah, leaving him bereft of his whole life's purpose. So people suffer from fear of change, fear of moving forward. Why? Because they're scared to leave the past. They're scared that nobody's gonna like me if I do this. And this is something that is very prevalent and common today, that people stick to their ways because they're scared that if they become better, then those people that surround them won't want to be with them anymore. And this is what happens actually to a Baal Tshuva, a person that returns to the Torah, returns to himself. He loses a lot of friends on the way because the old friends can't relate to him. They look at him and they say, no, this guy is just too up there. I can't relate to this person. I can't even talk to them anymore because we have nothing in common. So Abraham had to choose between fulfilling God's word and continuing to spread it. And the Midrash tells us, Abraham said, while I was still uncircumcised, travelers came to me, but now that I'm to be circumcised, are you to say they won't come to me anymore? And for a man on the spiritual level of Abraham, this was a test of far greater magnitude than any other test he had ever encountered, because for him, the love of people was what gave him life. And to think that people won't want to be close to him anymore, it devastated him. So we can now understand why Abraham took advice from his 3 friends, and he needed them to become partners in his action. He needed them to do the Brit Milah on themselves too. He needed to do it to Ishmael, he needed to do it to all his household. So in that way, he wouldn't be so different from the rest of the world. In that way, he had a group. They were a groupie of people that shared something in common. So although Aner and Eshcol claimed that Abraham's Milah would be destructive to himself, we saw in another midrash that all 3 friends actually performed the operation on themselves, and they were really saying that in normal life, Milah has no place. Someone who circumcises himself to fulfill God's directive will propel himself into a spiritual world which has no relationship with the common man. And this did not stop his friends, Aner and Eshcol, and the other one, his name is Mamre. It didn't stop them from performing the Brit Milah, as they themselves were prepared to act in a way beyond the natural, but they confirmed Abraham's fears about his future relationship with the rest of humanity. And so we see that Mamre was the only of the 3 friends that was able to comfort Abraham's fears, to tell him, don't worry, and he recommended to him to do the Brit Milah, and we see that by doing so, he was able to preserve some intellectual connection with Abraham's actions, enabling humankind to retain some link within him, even the Brit Milah. And this is something very interesting. This is like really human psyche. We see that our forefathers were not like these angels that are up in heaven. They were human. They also had fears. They also had issues in life. They also had things that worried them. But we see that nevertheless, his love for Hashem was so big that he did what God asked him to do. It was such a big test, and it changed the whole course of humanity. Brit Milah is something that really is very, very distinct of the Jewish man, and it really sets the person apart. It sets the Jew apart. That's why the word Hebrew, the Hebrew, they used to call him the Hebrew, which means he's from the other side. He's not like everybody else. We're different. We're different, and physically, spiritually, we're different. So we see something beautiful that says that this explanation should help us to understand another difficult midrash, in which says that Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all those males born in his household. And Rabbi Avihu said, when Abraham circumcised the males of his household, they made a pile of the foreskins, and the sun shone upon them, and they putrefied. The smell was horrible. It was a very bad smell, and went up to God, just like the incense, the ketoret, the burnt offering, which is totally consumed by the fire. And God said, when their children sin and perform wicked acts, I will recall this smell for them, and I will be filled with mercy for them, and I will act merciful. So Brit Milah really brings mercy to the Jewish people. Hashem, when he remembers that the male has done this for him, he is merciful to the Jewish people. He overlooks their sins and he takes care of them. And Rashi explains that one of the hidden meanings of the ketores, which was the incense that was burnt in the times of the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash, is that it represents all of the mitzvahs of the Torah. And indeed, its numerical value is 613, the number of mitzvot in the Torah, 248 positive mitzvahs, and 365 prohibitions, encompassing the whole range of good and bad activities of human life. And similarly, the ketores, the incense, included in the spices that were mixed. There's a spice that's called helbena, galbanum, and this spice has a horrible smell. It's horrible. But if the mixture of the spices for the ketoret, this Helbena, galbanum is missing, then this offering is not valid. It's invalidated. So the all-encompassing nature of the ketores demands that all elements of the Jewish people be represented, even the bad ones. And this was the symbolic purpose of the Helbena. It's as if the ketores rose above the mundane, taking both the tzaddikim and everyone else down to the most wicked person into the spiritual domain of God. When Abraham performed the Brit Milah on all of his household, Ishmael and the others included, he brought everyone at every level of spiritual development into a cloud. He lifted everybody up. This is what the Brit Milah did. It took everybody to a different spiritual level. And hence the comparison to the ketores, the incense, which was intended to fulfill the same purpose. So the incense, when it was burnt in the Beit HaMikdash, the purpose was that all Jews were there, even the worst of the worst and the best of the best, but nevertheless, they're all together, they all go up together. So I want to wish you a blessed week, and remember, live a little higher. Thank you.